I was helping my friend Karen find a retirement condo on a Sunday afternoon. She wanted something near the coast, close enough to hear the ocean but far enough from the tourist crowds. We'd been at it for over an hour at my kitchen table, my laptop between us, coffee going cold in our mugs, ranch-style homes, split levels, condos with ocean views. I clicked through page after page while Karen made notes in her careful handwriting. It was comfortable, easy. The kind of quiet Sunday I'd come to appreciate since Tom died. Then I paused. A cabin had come up in the recommended listings. Something about the stone fireplace in the thumbnail made me stop scrolling. I clicked on the photo. My breath caught. That fireplace. I knew that fireplace. Dad built it himself in the summer of 1982. I was 14. I remembered holding the stones while he mixed the mortar, teaching me about patience and getting the levels right. "Measure twice, cut once, Linda," he'd say. I leaned closer to the screen, my pulse quickening. The wide front porch, those rocking chairs. I zoomed in on the next photo, yellow gingham curtains in the kitchen window. Mom's curtains. She'd made them the summer before she got sick, and I'd stood on a stepladder helping her hang them while she worried they were too cheerful, too bright. "They're perfect, Mom," I'd told her. They were still there. Still perfect. I felt something cold settle in my chest. I knew this cabin. This was our cabin. I scrolled down to the listing details with hands that weren't quite steady. Charming 3-bedroom lakefront cabin, original stonework, mature trees, private dock, $485,000, well-maintained property, perfect condition, ready for immediate occupancy. Listed by Robert Martinez, my brother. I stared at his name on the screen. Robert Martinez. Rob. My little brother who used to catch fireflies with me in mason jars. My brother who'd called me 18 months ago with devastating news. I could still hear his voice. I'd been at the grocery store, standing in the meat section trying to decide between chicken and pork chops for dinner, when my phone rang. Rob's voice sounded shaky, stressed. "Lynn, I have bad news. The cabin. There was an electrical fire last week. It's gone. The whole thing. Everything's gone." I dropped the package of chicken, just stood there in the middle of the store while other shoppers moved around me. "What do you mean gone?" I'd asked. "Burned to the ground," he said. "The fire department couldn't save it." "I'm so sorry, Lynn. I know how much it meant to you, to both of us." I'd sat in my car in that grocery store parking lot for 20 minutes, crying, grieving for a place that held every good memory of my childhood. The cabin where we'd spent every summer, where Dad taught us to fish off the dock at dawn, where Mom made her famous blueberry pies and we'd eat them warm on the porch, where Rob and I stayed up too late telling ghost stories and woke up to the sound of loons on the water. All of it gone, or so I'd thought. I'd driven home in a daze that day, called my kids to tell them, looked through old photo albums and cried some more. I'd even driven out to the property a month later, but Rob had told me not to. "It's too upsetting, Lynn. Just ashes and burned wood. You don't want to see it like that. Remember it the way it was." So I'd turned around, trusted him, let him handle everything, the insurance, the cleanup, all of it. But now I was looking at 12 photos of our cabin, and it was perfect. I clicked through each one, slowly, carefully, like I was gathering evidence I didn't want to believe. The living room with the stone fireplace and Dad's old leather chair still in the corner. The kitchen with those yellow curtains and the wooden table where we'd played cards on rainy days. The bedrooms with their quilts and pine furniture. The view from the porch at sunset, the water turning gold and pink. The dock where Dad taught me to tie a proper fishing knot. Every room, every window, every detail I remembered. There was no fire damage, no burned wood, no ashes. The cabin looked exactly the way it had the last time I'd seen it, 3 years ago at Dad's funeral reception. We'd gathered there afterward, eating casseroles and telling Dad stories. Rob had stood on that porch and talked about keeping the cabin in the family, preserving Dad's legacy. I sat back in my chair. Karen was asking me something about square footage, but I couldn't hear her. My ears were ringing. I looked at Tom's photo on the shelf across from me, the one from our trip to the cabin on our 20th anniversary. He'd always said I was too trusting. He'd said it gently, lovingly, but now I heard it like a warning I'd ignored. I set down my coffee cup before I could drop it. My hands were shaking. I scrolled back to the top of the listing. $485,000, listed 6 days ago. Robert Martinez, licensed real estate agent. Showings by appointment. I clicked on the photos again, studying each one like I might find proof that I was wrong, that this was some mistake, some other cabin that just looked exactly like ours. But it wasn't a mistake. That was Mom's yellow curtain fabric. That was the chip in the corner of the stone fireplace where Rob had thrown a baseball when he was 8. That was the view of the lake I'd memorized over 40 summers. My brother told me the cabin burned down. He'd let me grieve for it. Let me think our family's history was ashes. And now he was selling it. Like it was his alone to sell. Like I didn't exist. Like our parents hadn't left it to both of us. I closed the laptop. Karen was still talking about square footage and HOA fees, but I couldn't focus. I mumbled something about needing to make a phone call and walked her to the door. She squeezed my hand, concerned, but I couldn't explain. Not yet. Not until I understood what I was looking at. After she left, I sat at my kitchen table in the quiet. The Sunday afternoon stretched out around me. I should call Rob. I should call him right now and ask him to explain. But something stopped me. Some instinct I didn't quite trust yet. Our parents bought that cabin in 1978, the year I turned 10. Dad had saved for years to afford it. It wasn't fancy. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen where Mom complained the oven ran hot. But it sat on 2 acres of lakefront property in upstate New York, and to us it was paradise. We spent every summer there, every Thanksgiving, every 4th of July. When Mom died 5 years ago, Dad kept going to the cabin alone. He'd sit on the porch and talk to her, he told me once. After Dad died 3 years ago, the cabin became ours, mine and Rob's. The will was clear, equal ownership, equal responsibility, equal inheritance. Rob said he'd handle the property taxes and maintenance since he lived closer. I was 2 hours away in my condo, and with Tom sick at the time, I'd been grateful. Rob was always the responsible one, the one who managed money for a living, who handled Dad's estate, who took care of the details I found overwhelming. Over the years, I'd helped Rob whenever he needed it. $15,000 for his daughter Olivia's wedding when his investments fell through. $12,000 for Dad's funeral expenses when Rob had cash flow issues. $22,000 I'd co-signed on his business loan back in 2015. Another $8,000 here and there over the years. Car repairs when his Lexus broke down. Help with Olivia's college textbooks. Property taxes on the cabin when he was between clients. I'd stopped counting somewhere after $60,000. I thought I was helping family. I thought he'd do the same for me if I needed it. That's what family does. Rob was a financial advisor. He had his own small firm, managed retirement accounts for a handful of clients. He'd always seemed successful. Nice car, nice clothes, country club membership. His office had leather chairs and mahogany furniture. When he talked about investments and portfolio diversification, I nodded along and felt grateful someone in the family understood these things. After Tom died, Rob had helped me understand my own finances, what my pension would be, how much I could safely withdraw from savings each month. "I'll take care of you, Lynn," he'd said. "That's what brothers do." I'd believed him. I'd always believed him. That was my problem, Tom used to say, not unkindly. He'd say it while we were doing dishes or folding laundry, when I'd mention lending Rob money again or co-signing another loan. You see, the best in people, Linda. Sometimes too much of the best. He'd been right. I was 68 years old and I still couldn't say no to family. Still couldn't question when someone I loved told me something. Still avoided conflict like it might kill me. My daughter Emma had inherited that same quality. My son David had not. David questioned everything, challenged everyone. Maybe I should have been more like David. Looking back now, there were signs I'd ignored. Small things that felt wrong at the time, but that I'd talked myself out of noticing. After Dad died, Rob insisted on being the executor of the estate. "You've got enough on your plate, Lynn. Let me handle the paperwork." When I'd asked to see the property tax bills for the cabin, he'd said he'd already paid them, not to worry. When I'd mentioned visiting the cabin that first spring after Dad's death, Rob said the septic system was acting up. Better to wait. When the fire happened, I'd asked about the insurance claim. "It's complicated," Rob had said. "These things take time. I'll keep you updated." I'd never asked to see the fire marshal's report, never asked for the insurance company's name, never drove out to see the damage myself. He told me it would be too upsetting, and I'd believed him. My neighbor Margaret called that evening to check on me. She lived 2 doors down in our condo complex, and we'd been in the same garden club for 5 years. We had coffee together most mornings, traded books, complained about the HOA's ridiculous landscaping rules. Margaret was 71, a retired nurse, and she noticed things. "You sounded strange when I saw you earlier," she said. "Everything okay, sweetie?" I almost told her everything right then, but instead I said I was fine, just tired, and hung up feeling like a coward. Margaret would have told me to confront Rob immediately. She would have said, "Don't let him get away with this." But I wasn't ready for confrontation. I needed to understand first. I called my son David that night. He lived 40 minutes away with his wife and 2 kids. He worked in IT, understood computers and the internet in ways I never would. "Mom, what's wrong?" he asked immediately. I could hear his kids arguing in the background. I told him I'd seen a strange real estate listing, and could he help me look into something? "Sure," he said. "Send me the link." I didn't mention it was our family cabin. I didn't mention Rob. Not yet. My daughter Emma called an hour later, her weekly Sunday check-in. Emma was a high school counselor, empathetic and careful with people's feelings. She asked about my week, about Karen's condo search, about whether I'd been to my book club meeting. I told her everything was fine. The lie tasted bitter. Rob had been through a rough few years, I reminded myself. His wife left him 3 years ago. The divorce was ugly. She'd claimed he'd been lying about money for years, hiding debts, gambling online. At the time, I'd thought she was being cruel. Rob had seemed devastated. He'd cried at Dad's funeral, leaned on me for support, told me he didn't know how he'd get through losing Dad and his marriage in the same year. I'd felt sorry for him. At Dad's funeral reception at the cabin, my cousin had mentioned Rob was having money troubles. Something about gambling. I dismissed it as gossip. You don't spread rumors about family at funerals. Maybe I should have listened. After the calls, I pulled out the photo albums. I kept them on the bottom shelf of my bookcase. 3 thick albums chronicled 40-plus years of summers at the cabin. I sat on my living room floor and opened the first one. 1978. Me at 10, Rob at 7, standing on the dock in our swimsuits, skinny and sunburned and grinning. Mom and Dad young, their arms around each other. 4th of July, 1985. Rob and me with sparklers. Thanksgiving, 1992. The whole extended family crowded around the table. I flipped through pages and pages of memories. Rob teaching my kids to fish. Dad in his rocking chair on the porch. Mom's blueberry pies cooling on the windowsill. Every photo was taken at that cabin, at our cabin. The cabin Rob told me had burned down. I looked up at Tom's photo on the shelf. His kind face, his patient smile. "You always said I was too trusting," I told him quietly. I should have listened. The apartment was too quiet. I could hear the refrigerator humming, a car passing outside, my own breathing. I closed the photo album carefully. My hands were steadier now than they'd been that afternoon, but my mind was racing. I'd trusted Rob my entire life. He was my little brother, the one I'd protected on the playground, the one I'd helped with homework, the one I'd lent money to whenever he needed it, the one I'd believed without question when he told me our family's cabin had burned to the ground. Now I needed to find out if everything he'd told me was a lie. Monday morning, I called the county clerk's office. I told myself I was being paranoid, that there was some explanation, that Rob wouldn't lie about something this big, but I needed to know. The woman who answered sounded bored, like she'd rather be anywhere else. I asked about property records for the cabin address. "I'm trying to locate fire department reports," I said, keeping my voice steady. "There was supposedly a fire at that address about 18 months ago." I could hear her typing. The wait felt endless. "No fire reported at that address in the past 5 years," she said. "Are you sure you have the right property?" I thanked her and hung up. My hands were shaking again. I sat at my kitchen table with my coffee going cold. No fire reported. Not in 5 years. Not ever. I wanted to call Rob right then. Demand answers. But something told me to wait, to gather more information first. If I confronted him now, he'd have time to cover his tracks. Time to create more lies. I needed to understand what I was dealing with before I showed my hand. David called me back that afternoon. "Mom, I looked at that listing," he said. "That's Grandma and Grandpa's cabin." His voice was careful, confused. "I know," I said. "Uncle Rob is selling it?" he asked. "I thought it burned down." I took a breath. "So did I said. "Can you help me find out more?" David said he'd look into it. Within an hour, he'd sent me a file, property tax records. Rob had been paying the taxes alone for the past 2 years. The records showed only his name on the payment receipts, like he was positioning himself as the sole owner, like I didn't exist. David had also found the listing history. The cabin had been listed 6 months ago under a different agent. The listing had fallen through. Rob had relisted it 2 weeks ago under his own name as the agent. "Mom, what's going on?" David asked when he called back. I didn't have an answer yet. "I'm not sure," I said, "but I'm going to find out." That evening, Rob called for his weekly check-in. He did that every Monday. A brief call to see how I was doing, make sure I didn't need anything. Usually it made me feel cared for. Now it felt calculated. I let it ring 3 times before I answered. Tried to sound normal. "Hey, Rob," I said. "How are you?" He sounded relaxed, cheerful even. We talked about the weather, about his work, about Olivia. Then I took a breath. "Rob, I was thinking about the cabin the other day. Did the insurance ever finalize everything?" There was the smallest pause, less than a second, but I heard it. "Oh yeah," he said. "Finally. You know how insurance companies are. Took forever to process everything." I gripped my phone tighter. "What company was it again?" I asked. "I should have those records." Another pause, this one longer. "Why do you need that, Lynn?" His voice had shifted, still friendly but wary now. "It's all settled. I can send you your half if you need money. Is that what this is about?" I felt anger rise in my chest. "No," I said carefully. "I just want to keep my records organized." He laughed. It sounded forced. "You and your filing system. Don't worry about it. I've got everything handled. Hey, I've got another call coming in. Talk next week?" He hung up before I could say anything else. I sat there with the phone in my hand. He'd lied. Smoothly, easily, like he'd practiced. He'd tried to redirect the conversation, offered money to make me go away. This was my brother, the person I'd trusted most in the world after Tom, and he was lying to my face, or to my ear, technically. But the point stood. I'd spent 68 years believing family meant something, believing blood meant loyalty. Now I didn't know what to believe. Margaret came by the next morning with coffee and croissants from the bakery she liked. She took one look at me and set everything down on my kitchen table. "Okay," she said. "What's going on, sweetie? And don't tell me you're fine. I've known you for 5 years. You're not fine." I told her everything. The listing, the fire that never happened, Rob's lies, the property taxes, all of it. She listened without interrupting, her face getting harder with each detail. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You need to call a lawyer. Today. This is fraud, Linda. Your brother is trying to steal your inheritance." I flinched at the word steal. "I don't know if I want to involve lawyers," I said. He's my brother. Maybe there's an explanation. Margaret gave me a look. There's an explanation, she said. He's lying to you, and he's going to sell that cabin if you don't stop him. I knew she was right, but calling a lawyer felt like declaring war. It felt like admitting my brother was someone I didn't know, someone who could look me in the eye or talk to me on the phone and lie without hesitation. Think about it, Margaret said, squeezing my hand. But don't think too long. That cabin is your inheritance. Your parents wanted you to have it. After she left, I looked up elder law attorneys. I felt silly doing it. I wasn't elderly. I was 68. But the website said they handled estate disputes and financial exploitation. I bookmarked 3 of them. Then I called David. Can you dig a little deeper? I asked. I need to know what else Rob isn't telling me. By Thursday, David had found more. He'd somehow accessed Rob's email, something about cloud storage and password recovery that I didn't understand and probably didn't want to. There was an email thread between Rob and a real estate agent from 6 months ago. Working on getting my sister to sign the paperwork, Rob had written. She's not really involved in property decisions. It shouldn't be a problem. David's voice was tight with anger when he read it to me. Mom, he's been planning this for months, maybe longer. I felt sick. My sister. Like I was a problem to be managed. Like I was senile or incompetent. Like my name wasn't on the same deed as his. That weekend, I did something stupid. I called the number on the listing. A woman answered. Lakefront Properties, this is Jessica. How can I help you? I asked about the cabin, pretended I was a potential buyer interested in seeing it. Oh, that's a beautiful property, she said. Are you working with an agent? I said I wasn't sure yet, just looking. Well, the listing agent is Robert Martinez. He's the owner's representative. Great guy. Very motivated to sell. Would you like me to connect you? I said I'd call back and hung up. Owner's representative. Motivated to sell. I sat there shaking. Rob hadn't just listed the cabin. He'd positioned himself as the sole owner. He'd told the real estate agent he represented the owner. Not that he was co-owner, not that his sister had equal rights. He'd erased me completely. My phone rang an hour later. Rob. Lynn, did you just call about the cabin listing? His voice wasn't friendly anymore. It was sharp, accusatory. Someone called from this area code asking about the property. That wasn't you, was it? I'd been caught. I hadn't expected the agent to mention it to him, hadn't thought it through. I saw the listing online, I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded small, uncertain. You told me it burned down. He was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was careful, gentle even, like he was talking to a confused child. Lynn, honey, I think you're confused. That cabin did have fire damage. I had it repaired. I paid for all the repairs myself. Now I'm selling it to recoup the costs. This is all perfectly legal. I'm handling the estate exactly like Dad wanted. I felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. He was gaslighting me. I knew what that word meant. Emma had talked about it in therapy, how her clients' parents would deny reality and make them doubt their own experiences. That's what Rob was doing right now. The county has no record of a fire, I said quietly. He laughed. County records? Lynn, you're overthinking this. Small fires don't always get reported. The insurance handled it privately. Look, if you need money, I'll send you some. Okay? Let me handle this. That's what I do. I handle things. But I wasn't confused, and I wasn't going to let him handle anything anymore. My brother wasn't just lying about a fire. He was erasing me from our family's legacy, and I needed to stop him before that cabin was gone forever. The next morning, I drove to the county recorder's office. It was a Tuesday, overcast and cold. I dressed carefully, slacks, a sweater, my good coat, like I was going to a job interview instead of investigating my own brother. The office was in a squat brick building downtown, fluorescent lights humming overhead, linoleum floors that squeaked under my shoes. I waited in line behind a young couple applying for a marriage license. They were laughing about something, holding hands. I remembered being that young, that trusting. The clerk called me forward. She was maybe 30, tired-looking. Her name tag said Patricia. I explained what I needed: property records for the cabin address, deed information. She typed for a moment, then printed out several pages. "That'll be $15 for copies," she said. I handed her a 20. She gave me back 5 singles and a manila folder. I sat in my car in the parking lot. I couldn't bring myself to drive yet. My hands were shaking too much. I opened the folder. The first page was the original deed from 1978. Robert and Maria Martinez, in typewritten letters. My parents' names, the property description, the date, the notary seal. I traced my fingers over my mother's name. The second page was the updated deed from 2021 after Dad died. Linda Marie Martinez and Robert James Martinez. Both our names, in black ink, clear as day. I sat there, staring at it. My name. Linda Marie Martinez, right there on the official record, the county document that proved I owned half of that cabin. Rob couldn't erase that, no matter what he told real estate agents or how many lies he told. I felt something break open in my chest. Not quite relief. More like confirmation of something terrible I'd hoped wasn't true. The county fire marshal's office was 10 minutes away. I'd called ahead. They'd told me to come in person. Easier to search the records if I was there. The building was newer than the recorder's office. All glass and steel. The woman at the front desk directed me to the 3rd floor. Fire Marshal Thompson met me in a small conference room, a thick binder of records on the table between us. He was maybe 50, gray at the temples, the kind of weathered face that came from years of running into burning buildings. "Mrs. Martinez," he said, "you're asking about a fire at this address?" He pointed to the cabin address I'd written down. Approximately 18 months ago. That's what my brother told me. He said it was an electrical fire. Said the whole cabin burned down. Thompson opened the binder, flipped through pages. Then he pulled up something on his laptop, squinting at the screen. "We keep digital records now," he said, cross-referenced with the old paper system. He was quiet for a moment, scrolling. Then he looked up at me. "Ma'am, we have no record of any fire at this address. No calls, no permits, no reports filed. Our records go back 10 years digitally, 20 years. On paper." I felt my throat tighten. "If there was a fire serious enough to require insurance," he continued, "we'd have been called. Structure fire, electrical fire. Those are required to be reported. Now, someone doesn't call us about burning dinner? Sure. Small kitchen fire, they handle it with an extinguisher? Maybe. But you're talking about a cabin burning down. We'd absolutely have a record of that." I sat in the lawyer's parking lot 20 minutes later, still holding that deed. I'd called attorney Sarah Chen from the car after the fire marshal's office. She'd had a cancellation and could see me immediately. Her office was in a renovated Victorian house on Main Street, painted pale blue with white trim. The kind of place that looked friendly and professional at the same time. I sat in the parking lot gathering my courage, telling myself this wasn't betrayal, this was protection. This was what I had to do. I looked at the deed one more time, both our names in black ink, 43 years of family history on one piece of paper, and somewhere, a forged signature that wasn't mine. I took a breath and went inside. Attorney Chen was younger than I expected, early 50s maybe, pulled back hair, practical suit, green tea on her desk. She shook my hand firmly and gestured to a chair. "Mrs. Martinez, you said this was about an estate dispute?" I nodded. I didn't know where to start, so I started at the beginning, the cabin, the fire that never happened, the listing, the county records, all of it. She took notes on a yellow legal pad, stopping me occasionally to clarify a detail. "When did your parents pass?" she asked. "Mom 5 years ago, Dad 3 years ago," I said. "And the cabin was left to both you and your brother equally?" I nodded. "That's what the will said. Equal ownership, equal responsibility." She made a note. And when did your brother tell you about this fire? I thought back. 18 months ago, maybe a little less, March or April of last year. She circled something on her pad. And you never saw the damage yourself? I shook my head. He told me it was too upsetting, that it was just ashes and burned wood, that I should remember it the way it was. Her expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. And you've just discovered the cabin is intact and listed for sale? 6 days ago, I said. I found the listing online by accident. She set down her pen. Mrs. Martinez, Linda, may I ask, do you have documentation of any of this? I slid the deed across her desk. She studied it carefully, reading every line. This is clear, she said after a moment. You're listed as co-owner. Your brother cannot sell this property without your consent or signature. I felt tears prick my eyes. Someone official had just confirmed I wasn't crazy, wasn't confused, wasn't the problem Rob had made me out to be. I showed her the rest, the real estate listing I'd printed out, with photos of the intact cabin and the price. $485,000. Rob's name as the listing agent. She examined each photo carefully. These are recent? She asked. The listing says 6 days ago, I said, but the photos could be older, I suppose. She studied the images. No, she said. Look here. There's snow on the ground in this shot. This was taken this winter. This cabin is standing. Right now. I showed her the property tax records David had found. Rob paying a loan for 2 years. My son found these, I explained. He's good with computers. Attorney Chen reviewed them, her jaw tightening slightly. This is concerning, she said. By paying taxes alone and not communicating with you about it, your brother is creating a paper trail that suggests sole ownership. This is often a preliminary step in adverse possession claims, though that's not applicable here given the short time frame. She made more notes. Then I showed her the email David had uncovered. Rob telling the agent he was working on getting my sister to sign the paperwork because I wasn't really involved in property decisions. Attorney Chen's professional mask slipped. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Mrs. Martinez, I need to be direct with you. This is fraud. Your brother is attempting to sell property he doesn't solely own. He's misrepresenting ownership to third parties. And based on these tax payments and this email, he's been planning this systematically. This isn't a miscommunication or a mistake. This is intentional. The word fraud hung in the air between us. I'd known it intellectually, but hearing a lawyer say it made it real, made it undeniable. My brother was committing fraud against me, against his own sister. There's more, I said quietly. I showed her the bank statements from the estate account. $8,000 in executor fees Rob had paid himself over 3 years. Is that normal? I asked. She reviewed the statements. Executor fees should be reasonable and documented, she said. For a simple estate, a cabin and some savings, $8,000 is excessive. Executors are typically entitled to 2 to 4% of the estate value, or a reasonable hourly rate with documentation. This looks like he simply took it without proper accounting or notification to you as a beneficiary. She looked up at me. Her voice was gentler now. Linda, I need to ask you something, and I need you to think carefully before you answer. What do you want to happen here? I took a breath. I want to keep the cabin, I said, or at least my half of it. I want it protected. I don't want it sold to strangers. It's all I have left of my parents. She nodded. Then we need to act quickly. If your brother finds a buyer who closes before we can intervene, this becomes exponentially more complicated. We'd be trying to undo a sale rather than prevent one. She pulled out a fresh legal pad. Here are your options. First, we can file an emergency injunction to prevent the sale while we sort this out. That's fastest. Second, we can pursue mediation. Try to resolve this outside of court. Your brother may be more amenable to negotiation when he realizes you have legal counsel. Third, if those don't work, we file a lawsuit for partition and fraud. That's the nuclear option. "What would you recommend?" I asked. She was quiet for a moment. "In my experience, family matters resolve best outside of courtrooms when possible. I'd recommend we start by sending your brother a cease and desist letter outlining your ownership rights and demanding he remove the listing. That often brings people to the negotiation table. If he refuses or the sale progresses, we file the injunction immediately. But Linda," she leaned forward, her voice firm but kind, "I need you to understand something. If your brother is doing this, if he's willing to forge documents and lie to you repeatedly, this is going to get uglier before it gets better. Family cases always do. People who'll steal from family don't usually go quietly." David had found one more piece of evidence. When I got home, he'd emailed me a scan of a document he'd requested from the title company. A quitclaim deed filed 6 months ago, attempting to transfer my share of the property to Rob. My signature was on it, except it wasn't my signature. It was close. Someone had practiced, maybe traced it from another document, but the capital M in Martinez was wrong. I always made a little flourish at the top. This one didn't have it. I printed the document and compared it to my signature on other papers, my will, the original cabin deed. They didn't match. Rob had forged my signature. The title company had flagged it, which is probably why that first sale attempt fell through. But he'd tried. My own brother had forged my name on a legal document to steal from me. I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd been helping Karen look at condos just over a week ago. Before I knew any of this, before my world had shifted underneath me, the evidence was spread in front of me like pieces of a puzzle I'd finally assembled. The property deed with both our names. Fire Marshal Thompson's confirmation that no fire was ever reported, the forged signature on the quitclaim deed, the email where Rob dismissed me as uninvolved, the excessive executor fees, the listing where he positioned himself as sole owner, the tax records showing he'd been preparing for this for years. Every piece fit together. My brother had been systematically trying to steal our family's cabin, our parents' legacy, half of my inheritance, and he'd done it while calling me every Monday to check in, while pretending to care about me, while letting me believe he was the responsible one, the one handling things, the one I could trust. I looked at Tom's photo on the shelf. "You were right," I said quietly. "I was too trusting." But I wasn't anymore. I had evidence now. I had a lawyer. I had documentation that proved every lie Rob had told me. Fire, Marshal Thompson's records, Attorney Chen's legal expertise, the county deed with my name in black ink. My brother thought I was confused, thought I was someone he could manipulate and dismiss, thought I'd never question him. He was wrong. I had the documents. I had the proof. And I wasn't going to let him steal our family's cabin. Attorney Chen had given me homework. Document everything, write down every lie, every time Rob discouraged me from visiting the property, every detail I could remember. I started that night sitting at my kitchen table with a notebook. March 2024. Rob calls, says cabin burned down. I'm at grocery store. I wrote for 2 hours, filling page after page, every phone conversation, every excuse, every time he told me to let him handle things. The words looked different, written down. Stark, undeniable, a pattern I'd been too close to see. By Thursday, I'd filled half the notebook, and I'd made a decision. I was going to the cabin. I hadn't been there since Dad's funeral reception 3 years ago. Rob had discouraged every visit since then. The septic system, the roof needing work, it being too far to drive for just a day trip, always something, always a reason I shouldn't go. Now I understood why. I needed to see it for myself, needed to stand on that property and know it was still there, still mine. I told Margaret I was taking a drive, didn't tell her where, didn't tell David or Emma. This was something I needed to do alone. The drive took 2 hours. I knew the route by heart. Highway 87 North, exit at Millbrook, County Road 12 West. I'd driven it every summer for 40 years, every Thanksgiving, every 4th of July. Tom and I used to play a game. Who could spot the old red barn first? The kids would count cows. Simple things. Family things. The highway looked the same. The exit signs, the gas station where we always stopped for coffee. But I felt different. The last time I'd driven this road, I'd believed the cabin was ashes. Believed my brother. Believed I'd never make this drive again. I turned onto the gravel road that led to the property. My heart was pounding. Part of me still expected to find nothing. To discover Rob had been telling some version of the truth. But as I came around the bend, there it was. The cabin. Exactly as I remembered it. The stone fireplace visible through the trees. The wide front porch with the rocking chairs. The dock stretching out over the water. I pulled into the driveway and sat there for a long moment, hands gripping the steering wheel. It was real. It was standing. My brother had lied about all of it. I got out of the car slowly. The air smelled like pine and lake water, sounds I knew by heart, birds in the trees, waves lapping against the dock, wind through the branches. I walked up the porch steps. They creaked in the same places they'd always creaked. The third step, the fifth. I stood there, looking out at the lake, this porch, this view. Dad used to sit here every morning with his coffee watching the sun come up. Mom would join him with her tea and they'd plan their day. What to cook for dinner, whether to take the boat out, where the best fishing was that week. Simple conversations, married conversations, 40 years of them, right here. I pulled out my key. I'd kept it on my keychain. All these years. A simple brass key with a red tag that said cabin in Mom's handwriting. I hadn't thought about it in months. Just carried it around, a piece of metal I didn't need anymore. Except I did need it, because the cabin wasn't gone. I unlocked the door. It opened smoothly. No fire damage, no smoke smell, no ashes. The living room looked exactly as it had at Dad's funeral reception. The leather couch, the stone fireplace, the coffee table with the chipped corner where Rob had knocked over a lamp when he was 12, Mom's yellow curtains in the kitchen window, the wooden table where we'd played cards on rainy days, the shelf where Dad kept his fishing magazines, all of it, untouched, waiting. I walked through each room slowly, my old bedroom with the twin bed and the quilt Grandma made, Rob's room with the bunk beds and the posters he'd left on the walls, Mom and Dad's room with the view of the water, the bathroom with the mirror that fogged up when you showered, the kitchen with the oven that ran hot and the refrigerator that hummed too loud. Every detail I'd thought was gone, every memory I'd grieved for, all of it had been here the whole time, while I cried in that grocery store parking lot, while I looked through photo albums and mourned, while Rob called every Monday to check in and lie to my face. The cabin had been standing here, waiting for me to come home. I went back out to the porch, sat in Mom's rocking chair, the one on the right. Dad's chair was on the left. I used to sit between them when I was little, my legs too short to reach the floor, rocking back and forth while they talked about grown-up things I didn't understand. Later, when I was older, Tom and I would sit in these chairs after the kids were asleep, watching the stars come out over the water, planning our own future, wondering if we'd have a place like this someday. Now Tom was gone. My parents were gone, and my brother was trying to take this away from me too. I thought about that summer when I was 14, 1982, Dad teaching Rob and me to fish off the dock at dawn. Patience, he'd said. That's the secret. You can't rush the fish. Rob had been impatient even then, 7 years old and bored after 10 minutes. I'd been the one who stayed, who waited, who eventually caught a bass, big enough to make Dad proud. Mom had cooked it for dinner that night, made her blueberry pie for dessert. We'd sat on this porch afterward, stuffed and happy, watching fireflies come out. This is what matters, Mom had said. Family, being together, remembering days like this. I'd been too young to understand what she meant, too young to know that someday I'd be sitting here alone, remembering, wishing I could go back. But I couldn't go back. I could only go forward. And going forward meant protecting this place. Not for me. For my grandchildren. For David's kids who loved fishing off this dock. For Emma's daughter who'd asked just last month when we could go back to the lake house. For the next 40 years of memories that should happen here. For the family traditions that shouldn't end because my brother made bad choices and tried to cover them up with lies. I'd spent my whole life avoiding conflict. Tom used to joke about it gently. Linda, you'd apologize to a wall if you walked into it. He was right. I said yes when I meant no. I stayed quiet when I should have spoken up. I gave Rob money I couldn't afford because saying no felt cruel. I believed him about the fire because questioning him felt disloyal. I'd been conflict avoidant my entire life, and I'd thought that made me kind, patient, good. Now I realized it had just made me easy to manipulate. But conflict avoidance could look like something else if you reframed it. Strategic patience, careful planning, not rushing in without all the information. I wasn't going to call Rob and scream at him, wasn't going to confront him at his office or make a scene. I was going to be methodical, document everything, build a case so airtight he couldn't talk his way out of it. Let him think I didn't know. Let him keep talking to me every Monday, digging himself deeper with every lie. And when the time came, when I had everything I needed, I'd stop him, legally, professionally, permanently. I sat in the lawyer's parking lot holding that deed, both our names in black ink, and a forged signature that wasn't mine. I stood up from the rocking chair, walked to the edge of the porch, looked out at the lake one more time. The water was gray today, matching the overcast sky. Small waves rippling in the wind, the dock where I'd learned to swim, the tree where we'd hung a rope swing, the fire pit where we'd roasted marshmallows, the garden plot where Mom had grown tomatoes every summer. All of it still here, still mine, still worth fighting for. I locked the cabin door behind me, got back in my car, and drove home with the cabin key in my pocket. Dad gave it to both of us when they updated the locks in 2005. Rob had his key, I had mine, but only one of us remembered what it meant, what it represented, the trust our parents had put in us, the responsibility, the legacy. Rob had forgotten, or he'd never understood in the first place. But I understood now, and I wasn't going to let him destroy it. I wouldn't confront him yet. I'd gather more evidence, build the case, document every lie, work with Attorney Chen, be strategic, be patient, wait for the right moment, and then I'd protect our family's legacy, the way our parents would have wanted me to, the way I should have been doing all along. Attorney Chen sent the cease and desist letter 3 days after my cabin visit. I'd given her everything, my documented timeline, the photos I'd taken of the property, the fire marshal's confirmation, all of it. The letter was 4 pages long, professional, firm. It outlined my ownership rights, demanded Rob remove the listing immediately, and warned of legal action if he proceeded with any sale. She sent it certified mail. He signed for it on a Tuesday morning. I waited for him to call. He didn't. Instead, his attorney called mine. Attorney Chen phoned me that evening. Mrs. Martinez, your brother has retained counsel, a David Brennan. He's claiming you abandoned your property rights by not contributing to maintenance or taxes for 3 years. I felt cold. That's not true, I said. Rob never asked me for money. He said he'd handle it. Her voice was calm. I know, and we can prove that. Mr. Brennan also claims the cabin did sustain fire damage, and your brother paid for repairs himself. He's saying the sale is to recoup repair costs. I almost laughed. It was absurd. There was no fire, I said. We have the fire marshal's statement. She agreed. I've already drafted a response. But Linda, this tells me something important. Your brother isn't backing down. He's escalating. We need to be ready. The listing stayed up. I checked every day. $485,000. Photos of the intact cabin. My brother's name. Then one morning, the listing status changed to pending. I stared at my computer screen. Pending. Someone had made an offer, and Rob had accepted it. I called Attorney Chen immediately. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial. "We need to file the injunction," I said, "right now." She'd already started the paperwork. "I'll have it filed by end of day," she said. "But Linda, you need to understand. If this goes to court, it's going to cost you legal fees, court costs. Your brother may countersue. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about my retirement savings, the money Tom and I had saved for emergencies, for the kids' weddings, for our old age. "Yes," I said. "I'm prepared." Rob called me that night for the first time since I'd seen the listing. His Monday check-in had been skipped the past 2 weeks. Now suddenly he wanted to talk. "Lynn," he said. His voice was different. Careful. "I got a letter from your attorney. I think there's been a misunderstanding." I stayed quiet. Let him talk. "Look, I know you're upset," he continued, "but I've been handling everything with the cabin. The repairs after the fire, the maintenance, the taxes. I've put a lot of money into that property. Now I'm selling it to recoup my costs. This is all perfectly legal." I took a breath. "Rob, there was no fire," I said quietly. "I have a statement from the fire marshal. I've been to the cabin. I've seen it. You lied to me." Silence. Then his voice changed again, harder. "Lynn, honey, I think you're confused. Maybe you should talk to your doctor. Is Emma concerned about you? Because I'm starting to worry." I hung up. My hands were shaking with anger. He was trying to make me sound senile, incompetent, to his lawyer, to my kids, to anyone who would listen. Margaret found me in my garden the next morning, pulling weeds with too much force. She knelt down beside me. "Talk to me, sweetie," she said. I told her about the pending sale, about Rob's lawyer, about him suggesting I needed to see a doctor. Margaret's face got hard. "That son of a—" She stopped herself. "Sorry, but Linda, he can't do this. You have rights." I nodded. I knew I had rights. But knowing and enforcing were different things. "The injunction hearing is Friday," I said. 3 days. She squeezed my hand. "You're going to win this," she said. But I wasn't so sure. "Family court," Attorney Chen had said. "Judges don't like to see families fight. Sometimes they push for settlements that aren't fair, just to avoid a trial. Sometimes the person who lies better wins." David was working late every night compiling more evidence. He'd found old emails between Rob and various clients mentioning financial difficulties. He'd found credit card statements somehow showing gambling charges, online poker sites, casino trips, thousands of dollars. "Mom, he's drowning in debt," David said. "This isn't about the cabin. This is about him needing cash fast." That made it worse somehow. Knowing Rob wasn't just greedy, he was desperate. Desperate people did desperate things, like forge signatures, like lie about fires, like try to steal from their own sister. Emma called on Wednesday. Her voice was small, uncertain. "Mom, Uncle Rob called me," she said. "He's worried about you. He said you're not yourself, that you're making accusations that don't make sense." I closed my eyes. Of course he'd called Emma. Emma, who was empathetic. Emma, who always saw the best in people. Emma, who'd inherited my conflict avoidance. "Emma, honey, your uncle is lying," I said. "He lied about the cabin burning down. He's been trying to sell it without my knowledge. I have proof, documents. I have a lawyer." She was quiet. "But why would he do that?" she asked. "He's your brother. He's always been so good to you." Had he been? Or had I just wanted to believe he was? "People do strange things when they're in financial trouble," I said. "Your brother found evidence. Uncle Rob has gambling debts, a lot of them." Another silence. "I don't know what to believe," she finally said. "I love you, Mom, but this is all so confusing." After we hung up, I cried. Rob was trying to divide my family, make my own daughter doubt me, and it was working. The injunction hearing was Friday morning at 9. I dressed carefully. A navy suit I'd bought for Dad's funeral, pearl earrings Tom had given me for our 30th anniversary. I wanted to look competent, stable. not like someone who was confused or making things up. Attorney Chen met me outside the courthouse. She looked professional as always, prepared. "The judge is Helena Morrison," she said. "Fair, but she doesn't like wasting time. We'll present our evidence. Rob's attorney will present his version. Judge Morrison will decide whether to grant a temporary injunction to stop the sale while we sort this out." I nodded. My mouth was dry. "What if she doesn't?" I asked. Attorney Chen's expression was serious. "Then the sale proceeds, and we're trying to undo a transaction instead of prevent one. Much harder." The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights. Judge Morrison was maybe 60, gray hair, reading glasses. She looked tired. Rob was already there with his attorney, David Brennan. Rob looked good, tan, confident. He nodded at me, smiled slightly, like we were at a family dinner, not a court hearing about his fraud. I looked away. Attorney Chen presented our case, the deed showing joint ownership, the fire marshal's statement, the county records showing no fire reported, the forged quitclaim deed, the email where Rob said he was working on getting me to sign paperwork. It took 20 minutes. Brennan presented Rob's version, the fire damage story, receipts for repairs. I'd never seen those before. Wondered if they were real. Tax payment records showing Rob had paid a loan. A letter from a contractor saying the cabin had sustained moderate fire and water damage in March of last year. Attorney Chen objected. "We'd like to see that contractor testify under oath, Your Honor. Our fire marshal statement contradicts this entirely." Judge Morrison made notes, asked questions. Finally, she looked up. "I'm granting a temporary injunction," she said. "The sale is stayed pending a full hearing. Mr. Martinez, you are not to proceed with any transaction regarding this property until this court makes a final determination. Is that clear?" Rob's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Yes, Your Honor." Outside the courthouse, I couldn't stop shaking. Relief, anger, exhaustion, all of it hitting me at once. "We bought time," Attorney Chen said. "But this isn't over. The full hearing is in 6 weeks. Your brother is going to fight this, and his attorney is good. They're going to try to prove you abandoned your ownership rights. We need to be ready." I nodded. 6 weeks. 6 more weeks of this. "What do I do now?" I asked. She looked at me seriously. "You document everything, every interaction with your brother. You take care of yourself. This kind of stress isn't good for anyone. And you prepare for the possibility that this might go to trial. Full litigation, discovery, depositions, all of it. Are you ready for that?" I thought about the cabin, about my grandchildren, about my parents' legacy. "Yes," I said, "I'm ready." That night, Margaret brought over a casserole, chicken and rice, the kind you eat when you need comfort food. We sat at my kitchen table and she let me talk about the hearing, about Rob's lies, about Emma doubting me. "Your daughter will come around," Margaret said, "when she sees the evidence, when this is over." I hoped she was right, but I'd learned something these past few weeks. Hope wasn't enough. Evidence was what mattered. Documentation, proof, facts that couldn't be argued away or twisted into something else. "I'm tired," I told Margaret. "I'm 68 years old. I should be enjoying retirement, playing with my grandchildren, not fighting with my brother in court." She squeezed my hand. "Sometimes the right thing is the hard thing," she said, "and you're doing the right thing. Your parents would be proud." My grandson called the next morning, David's oldest, 10 years old. "Grandma," he said, "Dad said there's a problem with the cabin. When can we go back? I want to fish on Grandpa's dock." I felt tears prick my eyes. "Soon, sweetie," I said. "I'm working on it. It might take a little while, but we'll get back there. I promise." After I hung up, I looked at the calendar. 6 weeks until the full hearing. 42 days. It felt like forever. But I'd waited 68 years to stand up to my brother. I could wait 6 more weeks. The cabin was safe for now. The injunction had stopped the sale. Rob couldn't touch it. couldn't sell it, couldn't take it away from my grandchildren, not yet, anyway. And I was going to make sure he never could. The mediation was scheduled for 2 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon, 6 weeks after the injunction hearing, 6 weeks of waiting, of documenting, of sleepless nights and stress that made my doctor frown at my blood pressure readings. Attorney Chen had prepared me as much as she could. Mediation is about finding middle ground, she'd said, but you don't have to accept anything you're not comfortable with. We can walk away and go to trial if we need to. I'd nodded. But the thought of a trial, of months more of this, of depositions and discovery and my family drama becoming public record, made me feel sick. I arrived early. The mediation office was in a modern building downtown, all glass and steel. Nothing like the cozy Victorian where Attorney Chen's office was. This place felt cold, impersonal. Maybe that was appropriate. The receptionist directed me to a conference room on the 3rd floor. Attorney Chen was already there, organizing files on a long wooden table. She looked up when I came in. "You ready?" she asked. I wasn't sure, but I nodded anyway. The conference room had windows overlooking the city, a long table, comfortable chairs, a water pitcher and glasses, a box of tissues on the side table. I wondered how many families had sat in this room, fighting over money or property or children. How many relationships had ended here? Rob arrived 10 minutes later. I heard his voice in the hallway before I saw him, talking to someone about golf, laughing, like this was just another business meeting, like he hadn't spent months lying to me, forging my signature, trying to steal our family's cabin. He walked into the conference room and stopped when he saw me. For just a second, his confident expression faltered. Then he recovered, smiled. "Lynn," he said, "you look good. Have you lost weight?" I didn't answer, didn't smile back. Attorney Chen gestured to the chairs across the table. "Mr. Martinez, Mr. Brennan, please have a seat. The mediator will be here shortly." Rob's attorney sat down, opened his briefcase, but Rob was still standing, looking at me. "Lynn, we don't have to do this," he said quietly. "We're family. We can work this out ourselves. We don't need lawyers and mediators and all this formal stuff." I met his eyes. "Yes," I said. "We do." He looked like he wanted to say more. His mouth opened, closed, then he sat down. The mediator arrived a moment later, a woman in her 50s, gray suit, kind but professional face. She introduced herself as Barbara Knowles. "I'm a neutral third party," she explained. "My job is to help you reach an agreement that works for both of you. Anything said in this room stays in this room unless we reach a settlement. Are we clear?" We all nodded. She looked at the paperwork in front of her. "So, this is a property dispute regarding a cabin at Lake George. Mrs. Martinez and Mr. Martinez are joint owners, inherited from their parents. Mr. Martinez attempted to sell the property. Mrs. Martinez claims she did not consent and was unaware of the sale. Is that accurate?" Attorney Chen nodded. "That's correct, and we have evidence that Mr. Martinez systematically misrepresented ownership and forged Mrs. Martinez's signature on legal documents." Brennan leaned forward. "We dispute that characterization. Mr. Martinez paid all property taxes and maintenance costs for 3 years. Mrs. Martinez made no contributions and expressed no interest in the property, under adverse possession principles." Attorney Chen cut him off. 3 years doesn't meet the statutory requirement for adverse possession in New York, and we have documented evidence that Mrs. Martinez was deliberately kept uninformed about the property status. Barbara Knowles held up her hand. "Let's start with the evidence. Mrs. Chen, you've prepared witness statements?" Attorney Chen pulled out a folder. "Yes. First, we have a statement from Patricia Ward, the county clerk. She confirms that the property deed lists both Linda Martinez and Robert Martinez as co-owners recorded in 2021 after their father's death. She also confirms that no quitclaim deed transferring Linda's share was ever successfully filed, though one was attempted and rejected by the title company due to signature discrepancies. She slid a document across the table. I watched Rob's face. He was looking at his hands. Second, Attorney Chen continued, we have a statement from Fire Marshal James Thompson. He confirms that no fire was reported at the cabin address in the past 10 years. No calls, no permits, no reports. The claim that the cabin sustained fire damage is demonstrably false. She slid another document across. Rob's jaw tightened. Third, we have a statement from Jessica Hartley, the real estate agent who worked with Mr. Martinez on the listing. She states that Mr. Martinez represented himself as the property owner, singular, that he never mentioned a co-owner, that he told her the property was his to sell without restrictions. Rob looked up sharply. That's not... Brennan put a hand on his arm. Let them finish. Attorney Chen wasn't done. We also have a handwriting analysis of the attempted quitclaim deed. The signature purporting to be Linda Martinez's is a forgery. The handwriting expert's report is in your packet. Finally, we have estate bank records showing that Mr. Martinez paid himself $8,000 in executor fees over 3 years, without providing any accounting to Mrs. Martinez or seeking court approval for those fees. She sat back. The pattern is clear. Mr. Martinez systematically attempted to take sole ownership of joint property through misrepresentation, forgery, and concealment. This isn't a simple family disagreement. This is fraud. Barbara Knowles looked at Rob. Mr. Martinez, do you want to respond to these allegations? Rob took a breath. He looked tired suddenly, older. I did pay for repairs, he said. His voice was quieter now. After the fire, Attorney Chen interrupted. There was no fire. We've established that. He shook his head. There was a small fire in the kitchen. I had it repaired before it got reported. I didn't want to mess with insurance claims and rate increases. I paid for it myself. Brennan was writing notes quickly, but I could tell even he didn't believe it. How much did these repairs cost? Barbara Knowles asked. About $15,000, Rob said. Maybe more. I don't have all the receipts. Attorney Chen pulled out another document. We have the contractor's statement. The contractor Rob provided at the injunction hearing. We deposed him last week. He admits Rob paid him $500 to write a letter claiming there was fire damage. There were no repairs. The contractor never worked on the property. Rob's face went pale. The room was quiet. Barbara Knowles looked at Rob with something like pity. Mr. Martinez, I need to be clear. If we can't reach an agreement today, this case will go to trial. And based on this evidence, you're likely to lose. You'll lose the property dispute. You may face criminal charges for forgery and fraud. You'll certainly face a lawsuit for the executor fees and damages. Is there something you want to tell us? Rob looked at me. Really looked at me. His eyes were red. Lynn, I'm sorry, he said. His voice cracked. I'm so sorry, I didn't know what else to do. Brennan tried to stop him. Rob, don't... But Rob kept talking. I have debts, gambling debts, $180,000. They were threatening me. I needed cash fast. The cabin was just sitting there and I thought maybe you wouldn't notice. You never visited, you never asked about it. After a while, I thought maybe you'd just forget. He was crying now. My brother, 65 years old, sitting across from me in a conference room, crying. I know that sounds stupid, he said. I know it was wrong. After the divorce, after I lost the business, after everything fell apart, I was desperate, Lynn. I'm so sorry. I sat there looking at him. This man who'd been my little brother, who I'd protected on the playground, who I'd lent money to over and over, who'd stolen from me, lied to me, tried to take the last thing I had from our parents. I felt so many things at once. Anger, grief, pity, exhaustion. You let me grieve, I said quietly. You told me the cabin burned down. You let me cry about it. You let me think our family history was gone. For 18 months, Rob. 18 months of lies. He was shaking his head. I know. There's nothing I can say." Attorney Chen's voice was firm. "Mr. Martinez, the question now is what happens next. Mrs. Martinez is willing to consider a settlement rather than pursue criminal charges. But she has terms." Barbara Knowles looked relieved. "Let's hear them." Attorney Chen laid it out. "First, Mrs. Martinez retains full ownership of the cabin. She will buy out Mr. Martinez's share at 50% of the i.e. current appraisal value. That's $242,000. Second, Mr. Martinez repays all executor fees taken from the estate, $8,000. Third, Mr. Martinez pays Mrs. Martinez's legal fees to date, approximately $15,000. Fourth, a no-contact order for 5 years, unless mutually agreed otherwise. And fifth, Mr. Martinez signs a notarized statement admitting to his misrepresentations regarding the property and waiving any future claims." Brennan was shaking his head. But Rob stopped him. "I'll sign it," he said. "All of it. I'll sign it." When the mediator laid out the settlement terms on paper, I didn't feel triumphant, just exhausted, sad. This was my brother, my only brother, and it had come to this. Rob signed the papers with shaking hands. Brennan witnessed, Attorney Chen witnessed, Barbara Knowles notarized. It took 20 minutes to finalize what had taken months to build up to. "Mrs. Martinez," Barbara Knowles said, "do you have any questions about these terms?" I looked at the settlement agreement, at Rob's signature at the bottom, at the cabin deed still showing both our names, soon to show only mine. "No," I said. "No questions." Rob stood up. He looked at me one more time. "Lynn, I really am sorry. I know you probably can't forgive me, but I want you to know I love you. I've always loved you. I messed everything up." I nodded. I didn't say I loved him, too. I wasn't sure I did anymore. Or maybe I did, but it didn't matter. Love wasn't enough when trust was gone. After he left, I sat in the conference room with Attorney Chen. She was packing up files, organizing documents. "You did well," she said. "That wasn't easy." I looked out the window at the city below, people going about their lives, not knowing their worlds could shift in a conference room on a Thursday afternoon. "Will he actually pay?" I asked. She nodded. "The settlement is legally binding. If he doesn't, we can pursue collection. But I think he will. He wants to avoid criminal charges." I thought about Rob's gambling debts, $180,000, more than the cabin buyout would give him. He'd still be drowning, still be desperate. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I'd protected what I needed to protect: the cabin, my parents' legacy, my grandchildren's inheritance. That's all I could do. I drove home in the late afternoon light. Spring was coming. I could see buds on the trees, flowers starting to bloom, new growth after a long winter. The cabin was mine now, legally, officially, irrevocably mine. I should have felt relief, victory, something. Instead, I just felt tired and sad. I'd won the fight, but I'd lost my brother, and I didn't know which loss was bigger. The settlement finalized 3 weeks after the mediation. Rob's portion of the cabin sale, $242,000, came from my retirement savings. The money Tom and I had saved for emergencies, for the kids' futures, for growing old together. I signed the check with a heavy hand. It wasn't fair. I was buying what was already half mine. But fair didn't matter anymore. Protecting the cabin did. Rob paid the legal fees as agreed. $15,000 wired to Attorney Chen's office. The executor fees, $8,000, came a week later. The no-contact order was filed with the court. 5 years. No phone calls, no visits, no Monday check-ins. The silence felt strange at first. Then it felt like relief. My family divided over what happened. Some understood. My son David was furious with his uncle, refused to speak Rob's name. My daughter Emma, once she saw all the evidence at the mediation, apologized to me with tears in her eyes. "Mom, I should have believed you from the start," she'd said. "I'm so sorry I doubted you." But others weren't so clear. My cousin Susan, Rob's age, grew up with us, stopped speaking to me. She thought I should have forgiven him. "He's family," she said at a family gathering I'd made the mistake of attending. "You don't take family to court over money." I'd wanted to explain it wasn't about money. It was about lies, about trust, about protecting what our parents wanted us to have. But I didn't. Some people would never understand, and I'd learned I couldn't make them. At that same gathering, another cousin took me aside. "I'm glad you did what you did," she said quietly. "Rob borrowed money from me too, never paid it back. Someone needed to stand up to him." I realized then how many people Rob had hurt over the years, how many small betrayals had added up. Personally, I felt different, lighter somehow despite the loss. The cabin was mine now, legally, irrevocably. My grandchildren could visit again, David's kids, Emma's daughter. They could fish off Grandpa's dock, roast marshmallows in the fire pit, learn to swim in the lake like I had. The family legacy was preserved, and I'd done it myself. I'd stood up to my brother, hired a lawyer, documented everything, built a case, and seen it through. At 68 years old, I'd learned I was stronger than I thought, more capable than I'd believed. Tom used to handle everything, finances, big decisions, conflicts. After he died, I'd felt so lost, so unsure of myself. Now I knew I could handle hard things, even when they hurt, even when they cost me relationships I'd valued. That knowledge changed me, made me trust myself in ways I hadn't before. Margaret had been with me through all of it. Every coffee date where I cried, every evening I showed up at her door, too stressed to be alone. Every time I needed someone to tell me I wasn't crazy, she'd been steady, unwavering. "I'm proud of you, sweetie," she'd said after the settlement. "Your mother would be proud too." 3 months after the mediation, I decided to have a small gathering at the cabin, a reopening of sorts. Margaret insisted on coming early to help me prepare. She brought homemade blueberry pie, Mom's recipe, which I'd given her years ago. We set up the porch together, arranging chairs and sweeping away winter debris. "This place has good bones," Margaret said, looking around. "Good memories, too. You were right to fight for it." Before she left that weekend, she planted roses in Mom's old garden plot, pink ones, Mom's favorite. "Every time you see these bloom," Margaret said, "you'll remember you did the right thing." Our friendship had always been good, but going through this together had deepened it, made it something more solid, more real. My son David surprised me. He'd always been the one who questioned everything, who challenged authority, who made things complicated. But during this fight, he'd been my rock. He'd found evidence I never could have uncovered. Spent hours researching, made phone calls, compiled documents. One Saturday afternoon at the cabin, a few months after everything settled, he brought his kids out for the day. His son, my grandson, 11 now, asked David to teach him to fish. I watched from the porch as David showed him how to bait a hook, how to cast, how to wait patiently for a bite. "Grandpa taught me on this dock," David told his son, "and his dad taught him. Now I'm teaching you." He looked up at me and smiled. Something had shifted between us through this process. He'd seen me as more than just his mom. He'd seen me as someone who could fight, who could stand up for what mattered. Later, when we were packing up, he said, "Mom, I'm proud of you for not backing down." It meant everything. A few weeks after that, Attorney Chen helped me set up the cabin trust. David agreed to be the successor trustee. "I'll protect it," he'd promised, "for your grandkids, for mine someday. This place stays in the family." Emma had struggled with everything. She'd been close to Rob growing up. He'd been the fun uncle, the one who took her to baseball games and bought her ice cream. Learning what he'd done, that he'd lied, forged documents, tried to gaslight her mother, had shaken her. At the mediation, when Rob broke down and admitted everything, I'd seen Emma's face. shock, then understanding, then guilt. She'd pulled me aside afterward. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have trusted you, should have listened." We talked for a long time that evening about family, about trust, about how the people we love can still hurt us, about how standing up for yourself isn't the same as being unforgiving. Emma helped me organize the cabin that summer. We sorted through old belongings, decided what to keep and what to let go. We painted the kitchen together, bright white, clean and fresh. "New start," Emma had said, rolling paint onto the walls. "For you, for all of us." Our relationship had always been good, but now it felt stronger, more honest, like we'd gone through something hard together and come out the other side changed. A letter came in early fall from Olivia, Rob's daughter, my niece. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won. Her handwriting was careful, neat. The letter was short. "Aunt Linda," it began. "I don't know how to begin. I'm ashamed of what my father did. Selling Grandma and Grandpa's cabin, the place where I learned to swim, where we had s'mores under the stars, where Grandma taught me to make blueberry pie. It was unforgivable. I understand if you don't want contact with our side of the family, but I hope, someday, you might let me visit. I miss the cabin. I miss you. The settlement was fair. More than fair. Thank you for not letting our family legacy disappear. Love, Liv." I read it twice, 3 times. Then I called her. We talked for an hour. She was angry at her father, disappointed, but she still loved him, still worried about him. "He's in counseling," she told me, "in Arizona, trying to deal with the gambling addiction. He sends me updates sometimes. He's getting help." I was glad to hear it. Not for me, for him, because he was still my brother even if I couldn't talk to him, even if trust was gone. I told Olivia she could visit the cabin any time. "It's your family history too," I said. "What your dad did doesn't change that." Attorney Chen had helped me set up more than just the trust. We'd updated my entire estate plan. The cabin couldn't be sold outside the family now, ever. It was protected in an irrevocable trust. David was the successor trustee, responsible for managing it after I was gone. But the trust had terms. Annual family gatherings were written in. The cabin had to be used, maintained, visited. It couldn't sit empty, couldn't be neglected. Each of my grandchildren would have access rights when they turned 18. "This ensures your family legacy," Attorney Chen explained. "Your brother, or anyone else, can never touch this property again. It's protected." The trust had cost money to set up, but it was worth it. Knowing the cabin would be there for generations, that my grandchildren's children might fish off that dock someday, that Mom's yellow curtains and Dad's stone fireplace would be there, waiting, that the family memories would continue. I changed the locks on the cabin, new keys made, one for me, one for David, one for Emma. Margaret joked she should get one too after all her support. I almost gave her one. Inside the cabin, I hung new photos, pictures of the grandkids, of Tom and me on our anniversary trip there, of Mom and Dad young standing on the dock in the 1970s, of Rob and me as children back when things were simple, before money and debts and lies complicated everything. I kept that photo. Because whatever else happened, he was still my little brother in that picture, still the kid who caught fireflies with me. That kid deserved to be remembered, even if the man he became had disappointed me. Margaret helped me plant Mom's garden that spring. Tomatoes, herbs, some flowers. "Your mom would love seeing this come back to life," Margaret said. I thought she was right. The first night I spent alone at the cabin after everything was settled felt strange, quiet, peaceful, but also lonely. I sat on the porch as the sun went down, listening to the water lap against the dock, the birds settling in for the night, the wind through the trees, sounds I'd thought I'd never hear again when Rob told me the place had burned down. I made coffee the next morning at dawn, sat in Mom's rocking chair, watched the sunrise over the lake, pink and gold and perfect, This was mine now. This peace, this place, this legacy. Later that summer, when David brought the grandkids, their laughter echoed across the water, running on the dock, splashing in the shallows, fighting over who got to paddle the kayak first. Normal family chaos, the kind Mom and Dad would have loved. I took photos, added them to the albums, new memories layering over old ones. The cabin had survived Rob's lies, survived the legal fight, and now it would survive for the next generation. The legal battle was over. The cabin was protected. My family knew the truth, but the harder part remained, living with what I'd learned about my brother, about family, about trust, and figuring out what came next. A year has passed since the settlement. I'm 69 now, still living in my condo, still independent, still taking care of myself. The cabin is mine, but I don't live there. I visit, I host gatherings, I spend weekends there when the weather's good. But my life is here. My garden club meetings with Margaret, my book club on Tuesday evenings, my coffee routine in the mornings. The cabin is part of my life now, not all of it. I think that's healthier, more balanced than when it consumed me during the legal fight. Rob and I haven't spoken. The no-contact order has 3 more years. Sometimes I wonder if we'll talk after it expires, if there's anything left to say. Olivia tells me he's doing better. Still in Arizona, still in counseling, still working on the gambling addiction. He got a job managing a small investment firm. Nothing like what he had before, but steady, stable. She says he asks about me sometimes, wants to know if I'm okay. I'm glad he's getting help. Glad he's finding his way back to something resembling stability, but I'm not ready to forgive. Maybe I never will be. Some betrayals are too deep. Some trust, once broken, can't be repaired. And that's okay. I've made peace with it. Margaret still checks on me every morning. Coffee at 9, weather permitting. She brings cuttings from her rose garden for the cabin. Your mother would love these, she says, like she's said 100 times before. It's a ritual now, a comfort. The book club ladies don't ask about Rob anymore. They just listen when I need to talk, which isn't often these days. The story feels old now, like something that happened to someone else. David calls every Sunday. We talk about his kids, about work, about the cabin. He took his family up last weekend, fixed the dock railing, painted the shutters, taking care of the place like it's his responsibility now. In a way, it is. Emma visits less often. She lives farther away. But when she does, we spend hours on the porch talking. Real conversations. Honest ones. The kind we never had before all this happened. I volunteer now with the county legal aid office, not as a lawyer, obviously, but as someone who's been through it, who understands what it's like when family takes advantage, when you need help but don't know where to start. I meet with other seniors, mostly women who've been financially exploited by relatives. I listen to their stories, help them understand their options, point them toward resources. Attorney Chen helped me get trained. You have valuable perspective, she'd said. Use it. So I do. Once a week, Tuesday afternoons. It helps me make sense of what happened, gives it purpose beyond just my own family drama, turns my pain into something useful for others. The cabin secured in trust means my grandchildren will inherit something real, something lasting, not just money that can be spent or lost, but a place, a legacy, memories, waiting to happen. Last month, Emma brought her daughter, my granddaughter, 7 years old, for a weekend visit. We made blueberry pie together, Mom's recipe, my granddaughter's small hands mixing the filling, asking questions about Grandma Maria, wanting to know everything. Did she really make the best pie? My granddaughter asked. The very best, I said. And it was true. We ate that pie on the porch, watching the sunset. 3 generations of women, connected by recipes and stories and a cabin that almost got sold to strangers, but didn't. Some mornings I sit on the cabin porch and think about Rob. I miss my brother. The brother I thought I knew anyway. The one who caught fireflies with me when we were kids. The one who called me every Monday to check in before I knew he was lying. I miss that person. But I don't regret protecting our family's legacy. I don't regret standing up for myself. At some point, you have to choose between keeping the peace and doing what's right. I chose right. It cost me a relationship, yes, but it gave me something too: self-respect, strength I didn't know I had, the knowledge that I could handle hard things, that I didn't need someone else to fight my battles, that at 68, now 69, I was still capable of protecting what mattered. People ask me if it was worth it: the stress, the money, the family division, the year of my life consumed by legal battles and court hearings and sleepless nights. I tell them yes, without hesitation. Yes, because the cabin is still here, because my grandchildren fish off Grandpa's dock, because family traditions continue, because I learned I was stronger than I thought, because I stood up to someone I'd been afraid to confront my whole life, because I proved to myself that I could. That's worth everything I lost, everything I paid, everything it cost. The cabin sits on the lake, waiting. The dock stretches into the water. The stone fireplace Dad built stands solid. Mom's yellow curtains hang in the kitchen window. The rocking chairs sit on the porch. The fire pit is ready for marshmallows. The garden grows tomatoes and herbs and roses. It's all still there, protected now, legally, permanently, for my children, for my grandchildren, for generations I'll never meet, but who'll sit on that porch someday watching the sunset, making their own memories. That's what I fought for. That's what I won. And that's enough.